there, and welcome to another episode of Technique Tasters brought to you by Creative Scrapbooker magazine. I'm Noreen Smith from Creative Memories, and I'm here to share with you how to make this fun School Dayz layout using Creative Memories' new School Dayz collection. Now, this collection is going to be great for all ages and both boys and girls, and it's going to feature a lot of great icons to document all of those fun school days. I'm going to be using some of the beautiful paper, the stickers, and some of these great variety mat cards to create this layout. And we're also going to rely on some favorite Creative Memories tools. In particular, the Notebook Edge Border Maker cartridge and the super versatile circle punch. So let me clear these away and let me show you how to make this fun School Dayz layout. So I'm using a few different papers from the School Dayz collection. I'm going to be using the ledger paper for my base. I'm going to be using the red dots for kind of a layering piece. And then I'm going to be using this super fun locker paper for the borders and as part of my mat for my main focal photo. I'm also going to be using some black cardstock, good old black cardstock, to create this great notebook edge border and also for my layered mat. So let's get started by creating these borders first. And I mentioned that you'll need the Notebook Edge Border Maker cartridge, and that works with the original Border Maker system from Creative Memories. So let's go ahead and do that. If you've never used the original Border Maker system before, it's really quite easy. You're going to flip over the paper guide and open up this gray tray. Then you're going to lift the blue magnetic arm, and that's where you're going to slide your paper. And it's going to fit right into the corners of that gray paper tray. So snap the magnetic arm down to hold the paper in place, and then you're going to just basically flip that paper tray out of the way. It's going to snap back into the back side of the paper tray. And this will leave the paper at the exact right position to go ahead and punch it. So we're going to take our Border Maker cartridge with these little teeth facing out and drop it into the cartridge housing. Press until you hear a click, and that will make the cartridge housing into your paper punch. Now, I already mentioned that there's some teeth on the Border Maker cartridge, and you might have noticed when I was looking at the back side of the paper tray that there are some notches, and the teeth fit into the notches and perfectly position your paper for being punched. So let's go ahead and slide our paper into the slot here. You're going to line that up at the bottom, and you'll feel the notches and the teeth lock together. So once it's locked together, you go ahead and punch. And then you're just going to pull it out a little bit, slide it up until it grips the next set of notches. And you can do that by feel, and once you've done this a few times, you'll feel when the notches connect. But you can also use these little manufacturing marks along the side of the blue magnetic arm and along the front part of the border punch housing to help visually line them up. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish punching this edge, and you can see that it gives a great punched edge that looks like you ripped your paper right out of a notebook. I love that. It's so much fun, and you can do so many different things with that. We're going to set this aside. We're going to use this again in just a few minutes. We're going to set it aside for right now, and we're going to cut our paper border using our 12-inch trimmer. And the size that I have here on this border is 2.5 inches. So we're going to just place this paper with the notebook punched edge to 2.5 inches and give it a quick cut. Our 12-inch trimmer just cuts like butter, and we are going to be using that again a little bit later. So now we have the actual border. And we could go ahead and add some of our fun circle stickers directly to our black border. But just for a little bit of interest and variety, we're actually going to punch out some circles so that the paper shows through. And that will give a nice little layered effect. So in order to do that, we're going to make some marks just using a ruler and pencil. And I'm just going to place my piece of cardstock here, my border, onto my 13 by 13 inch mat. And this is great because it allows me to measure really accurately. I'm going to use a ruler to draw a nice straight line. We're going to mark 5 different places, and that's where we're going to be punching out our circles. So we're going to mark at 1.5. So I'm just going to use my measurements on the top here and mark at 1.5. I'm using the lines on my mat to make sure that I've got them a nice straight line there. Then we're going to mark again at 3 3/4. So 1, 2, 3 3/4. And again, just double checking top and bottom. Then we're going to mark at 6. That's a nice easy one. We've got a nice large, easy to see line right down the center. Then we're going to do the same marks on the opposite side. So that means we're going to mark at 8.25 or 8 1/4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 1/4. Again, checking that top and bottom. And then our final mark is going to be at 10.5. So that's 8 1/4, 9, 10 1/2. So I'll draw my final line there. And again, I'll mention those marks again now that you can see them on the border. We've got a mark at 1.5, 3 3/4, 6, 8 1/4, and 10.5. And that's all we need to be able to punch our circles in a nice, even spacing along our border. Now I've taken our circle punch, which is a 1 3/4 inch circle, and I've just flipped it over, and you can see that I've drawn a couple of lines on the back side of my circle punch, basically lining up with the manufacturer's marks in the center there, so that I know that that is the center of my circle. I'm going to open this up, and now I'm going to place my border into my circle punch, and I'm going to line up the lines that I drew on my circle punch with the lines that I drew on my paper. So even though it seemed like we were making kind of an extra step there or an extra mark, it's going to help us really quickly and easily punch out all 5 circles so that they're nicely aligned onto our border. And that's going to save us a lot of time. So taking that extra minute to mark really creates a really nice even border. And so now I can just flip that over, and that part of my border is ready. Now you may have noticed that I've got a smaller notebook edge across the top. So before we put our border maker system away, let's go ahead and create this top border. We're going to do the exact same thing. Open up our paper tray and our magnetic arm. Place our paper inside and go ahead and punch. I haven't taken my border maker cartridge out of the housing yet, so it was still ready to go. But when you're ready to put this away, you're just going to hit that little blue button on the back side of the cartridge and pull out your border maker cartridge. And that way you can change it up and use whichever border cartridge you like. Creative Memories has so many different ones. So now that our second border has been punched, we're just going to go ahead and cut this one. You can see it's much smaller. This is actually 1 1/4 inches. So you can go ahead and place the punched edge at 1 1/4 inch mark and go ahead and trim. Since I have my black cardstock here, I'm going to go ahead and cut out my large layer for my matted photo, and that's going to be 5 by 7. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut this at 5 inches. That's my scrap. And then I can open up my trimmer, turn, and cut it at 7 inches. So we have all of our black pieces punched and cut, and since we still have our trimmer out, let's go ahead and cut the other paper pieces that we're going to need. So let's start by talking about the locker strips. Now, the locker paper itself is so much fun, and it has 6 different strips or stripes of lockers, and I'm going to use basically a 1-inch strip along the top and bottom. And you can just go ahead and trim your strip right down between the kind of the half size and the full size lockers. You can see that I chose the one that starts and ends with that beautiful turquoise island waters color. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that strip out, save the others for another layout. And the 12-inch trimmer makes it so easy because we have a variety of helpers on this trimmer to make cutting through on a straight line really easy. On either side of the housing, you'll see a little white triangle, so that points at the line. Plus we have 2 little sight lines, clear sight lines that slide out from each end of the trimmer. And these can be moved up and down to make sure that you are trimming along the straight line. So let's go ahead and cut here. I'm going to place the black line in between those sections of lockers where I think it is. And then I'm going to use my little extra helper tools to make sure that indeed I have a nice straight line. So I'll go ahead and cut. Let's just go ahead and trim off this full section. And I'll save that for another. And then I'm going to trim this section in half. Again, just use some of my little tools to make sure I'm actually trimming where I'm thinking that I'm trimming. That looks good. So we'll go ahead and trim my lockers into 2 sections. One will be for the bottom and one will be for the top. And I'll take the remaining section and I'm going to trim a 4.5 by 6.5 inch mat to go under my photo. So there's 4.5 and 6.5. So that looks great. I've got my border pieces, my layer pieces, and I just need one more piece for my background. This is actually going to measure 10 inches by 6 inches. So we'll go ahead and cut that. There's 6 inches. I have a nice big piece for another layout. And 10 inches. So I think we have everything we need. We can go ahead and start assembling the layout. So I have my layout base. Oh, isn't that a fun pattern on the back side with all of the school related paraphernalia. But I have my base here and I'm just adding a dot of repositionable adhesive so that I can keep it on my mat. And I love using it on my 13 by 13 inch cutting mat so I can see the lines on either side and make sure that I have things nice and straight. All right, so I can go ahead and just kind of add these. I think this one will go up at the top. There are some small little numbers on the lockers themselves, so I want to make sure that those go at the top. And same with this piece that I'm going to put at the bottom. Then my border that we cut and punched will go right on top there. And this one actually is going to tuck underneath. So this is actually going to go up at the top, and then the lockers are going to go over it. All I need to do then is place my 10 inch by 6 inch layer, my photo mat, and although I don't have another photo of my son, you can see that this is just perfect for a 4 by 6 focal photo. And I don't know about you, but I love to do a single photo page for each grade in my kids' school days books. I love to take the class photo and make that into a special sort of title page for each of the layouts that might follow. And then what I have here is actually a half size of our mat cards. Now our mat cards come in a pack with 4 by 6 inch cards and 4.5 by 6.5 inch cards. And many of them have great decorative titles or sayings. And I also love the ones that I can cut out and use for journaling. So you can see that that's a nice little half size mat card that I can just add right beside my photo. And then all we really need to do is add our embellishments. So you can see that on the sample layout, I've just chosen a variety of these circle embellishments, and they are sized just perfectly to fit inside those little 1 3/4 inch circles that we punched. And what makes it super easy to add them is to pop one of our foam squares. This is the largest one, and then that's just going to sit right inside there. And then the only other stickers that I've used are one to accent the little journal box, and then the picture day one kind of as my title. So that is a really fun and easy layout featuring our fun notebook edge border maker cartridge and our super versatile circle punch. I hope you have a chance to play with this great, fun, bright School Dayz collection and create some School Dayz memories for your kids. Thanks so much for joining me, and thanks again to Creative Scrapbooker magazine for having me back. Bye-bye for now.